Okay, folks, we have all the candidates in the house, and we will be getting underway in a couple of minutes as soon as everybody gets settled. Just give us like 2 or 3 more minutes and we'll get started. Thank you.
Yes. On that one, right? Okay, wonderful. Good luck. Have a good night.
I like your talk.
Oh, thanks.
Really great.
Yep. Start us off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Of course, yes. Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer.
Yeah.
Left of here. All right. Oh, she's here. Yeah, sort of. Actually, no. You can make her hold it. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our exclusive coverage of the Republican gubernatorial debate. We are coming to you live from the Pine Loft in Berlin, Connecticut, and we thank you for joining us here in person and for those of you watching us online at Facebook and YouTube. My name is Mark Minnick, and I am the president of the Connecticut Republican Assembly. We are joined with Common Sense News and Entertainment and Yankee Teen News to co-sponsor this event so that all of you can learn more about the people applying for the job of governor. For those of you not already familiar with CTRA, we are trademarked as the Republican wing of the Republican Party. We strive to adhere to the 14 principles that we believe make someone an authentic Republican. Our main function is to endorse candidates during primary season so that our party's voters can feel confident in choosing that candidate to represent the Republican Party in the general election. If we believe a candidate will uphold all 14 of those principles, we will officially endorse that candidate, which then obligates our members to work for that person. If a candidate agrees with at least 11 of the 14 principles, or Reagan's 80% rule, then we will issue a recommendation for that candidate. How do we determine which candidates deserve a recommendation or endorsement? We do it by sending out questionnaires, interviewing them directly, and of course, holding debates like this one tonight. In fact, this is just the first in a series of debates that we plan to hold throughout the entire 2026 primary season. We are planning to do those on Saturdays from May 30th through the end of June for the other hotly contested races. This all culminates with our endorsement convention, which will take place at our annual summer picnic on Saturday, July 11th at the American Legion Post 45 in Meredith. But now back to the business at hand. Joining us in the room tonight are many delegates to the upcoming CTGOP convention, which is happening next Friday and Saturday at Mohegan Sun Casino, our fellow CTRA members, our group of panelists, and more importantly, 2 of the 3 leading candidates running for the Republican Party's nomination for governor. Standing at the podium to my left will be the current state senator from Connecticut's 36th district, which covers all of Greenwich and parts of Stamford and New Canaan. He serves as the ranking senator on the Energy and Technology Committee and the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee. Please give a warm welcome to State Senator Ryan Fazio. Oh, to my left, Ryan. There we go. Standing at the right podium is a woman who gained national prominence for her critique of the 1993 Clinton Health Plan. Raised in Milford and Westport, she earned a PhD in constitutional history from Columbia University. She served as Lieutenant Governor of New York State and as an economic advisor to President Trump on his 2016 transition team. Please welcome Newsmax host and national columnist Betsy McCaughey.
Go get him.
And at the podium that would be in the center would be former New Britain Mayor Erin Stewart. She was invited to participate, but Erin unfortunately declined, and we respect her decision. Before we go over tonight's format, I would like to invite Gino DiGiovanni to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite everyone to join us as we end it with the words born and preborn.
I pledge allegiance
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gino. At this time, I would like to call on Pastor Jake Dell to lead us in our opening prayer.
Heavenly Father, 250 years ago, you, by a divine and benevolent providence, watered the tree of liberty with the blood of patriots. We ask you this evening to bless our time together as we hear from 2 patriots who are seeking to hold the office of Governor of Connecticut. These things we pray and ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Now let's go over the format for tonight's debate. This is a hybrid style debate. I will moderate the first round, which will consist of worldview type questions designed to show the voters how you guys think. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer each question, followed by a 2-minute rebuttal. State Rep candidate Caitlin Borres will hold up a sign that will indicate you have 30 seconds left. The second round of questions will come from our 3-person panel sitting to my left. Their questions will be more issue-specific and will come from the perspective of their respective vocations. The first candidate will get 2 minutes to answer, with a 1-minute rebuttal from the other candidate. Then we will take a few questions from our live audience, followed by a round of fun trivia questions from our state, before ending with a 2-minute closing statement from each of the candidates. We will begin with opening statements from each candidate. We held a coin toss, and Betsy McCaughey will go first, and each of you will have 5 minutes. Betsy, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who's here tonight and everyone who's watching from home or work. And I'd like to especially thank my very fine competitor, Senator Fazio, for joining me tonight. I'm running for governor because I have a plan to make Connecticut the economic hub of New England, a thriving, prosperous state again. How am I going to do it? First, by eliminating, read my lips, eliminating the state income tax in order to make Connecticut thriving and prosperous again. Right now, Connecticut ranks 48th out of 50 states in economic opportunity. In fact, the new jobs numbers just came out, and the United States produced 178,000 jobs in the prior month, and only 100 of them were produced in Connecticut. That's why our adult children and grandchildren are leaving this state to go to Florida and Texas and other places. And that's why I went to Hartford 3 weeks ago and announced that I am eliminating the state income tax. And of course, the naysayer said it can't be done. But I'm holding up this map to show you all the green states that have already gone to zero and all the yellow states that are currently zeroing out their income tax. All these states are cleaning Ned Lamont's clock. All the jobs, all the companies are moving to these states that are going to zero, and we have to do it too. Connecticut can't afford not to eliminate its income tax, and the legislation that these states are using, we can use. It's gradual, it's fiscally responsible, it doesn't create a large hole in the budget, but it does make it possible for us to be a high-growth state, and that's what we need to guarantee for our young people and our children. In addition, that's right, let's applaud the future of this state. In addition, I'm running for governor to defeat Lefty Lamont's outrageous housing law, which is an attack on homeowners and threatens the value of your biggest asset, your home, by stripping local zoning protections. You can save up to buy a single-family home on a quiet street, and Lefty's going to move in a big square apartment building or trailer park right next door to you. And you know what? That'll be over my dead body. He's never going to get away with it. That's right. And thirdly, I'm running for governor to relieve all of us of unaffordable energy prices. And I'm not waiting till I'm governor to do that. 2 weeks ago, I filed a lawsuit. I won't say filed. I slapped a lawsuit against New York State and Governor Kathy Hochul based on their violation of the Interstate Commerce Clause, because for 14 years, New York has been blocking a pipeline that would provide affordable natural energy. This is the pipeline from the Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania across New York State to Connecticut, to the existing pipelines that would carry it to our refineries. We need that affordable natural gas. In Connecticut, we're paying 3 times the price, 300% higher price, because we're importing natural gas from far off countries like Tobago, Tobago, Nicaragua, and Canada. 300% higher price. And the result is that we have some of the highest energy bills in the nation, right? Now, 56% of our energy comes from natural gas. So when this natural gas pipeline is opened up, it'll take 2 years to build it. Connecticut will be a source of affordable energy, and that will boost our economy as well. I'm getting ready to launch the Connecticut comeback. That's what it's going to be. And people will be moving back into the state, and our children will start planning their careers in this state. We will be the hub between Massachusetts and New York, where crazy Kathy Hochul is already planning on raising taxes. I'll stand right on the Connecticut-New York border and say to all those companies and families, come on over. We're open for business in Connecticut. That is my plan, and it will provide a bright future for our state. In addition, let me say, if you worry that Connecticut is going to take away your right to bear arms, or your right to homeschool your children, or your right to practice your religion freely and decline vaccines, I've got your back. I studied the Constitution. I earned a PhD in constitutional history. I've spent my life defending the Constitution, and I will go to court to defeat those terrible laws that were recently passed in Hartford. We have a bright day ahead in Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Ryan, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you to the CTRA for organizing this important debate. Thank you to my competitor, Ms. McCaughey, for accepting the invitation. And thanks to all of you for being here and being engaged as we fight to take back our state and finally create a bright future for it. Debates are important. It's not about beating up on each other. It's about explaining how you think about policy, how you would lead this state forward, and how you'll create a positive change in Connecticut. And guess what? If you can't debate against your Republican competitors, how are you going to stand on a debate stage against Ned Lamont, his millions of dollars, his 8 years on the job, and convince people that we need a change for the entire state? These debates are important. I know there was a lot of traffic for Betsy and I to get here. I think it took us both over 2 hours to finally make the trip. It would have been a lot nicer.
We could carpool.
Yes, we could next time. It would have. There we go. It would have been a lot easier. I wish I lived in just the town over and I was running for governor, so it would have been a lot easier to get here to do the debate. But anyway, listen, one thing is clear. No matter where I go all across this state, and it's that people are hurting. People are hurting in Connecticut. They're suffering under the weight of the third highest taxes in the country, the second highest electric rates after only Hawaii, which is detached from the mainland, and ahead of even California now, which is detached from reality. And not only that, but this state has become less safe and less free. Under 8 years of Governor Lamont, he has done everything possible to make Connecticut the most expensive state in the country, a less free state and a less safe state for our families and our children. Governor Lamont has raised taxes by $1 billion on Connecticut residents to the point that Connecticut's economy has slowed to the 4th weakest in the entire country. He's raised public benefits charges on our electric bills to the point that we have the second highest electric rates. He's turned Connecticut into a super sanctuary state for convicted criminals who should never even be in the country in the first place. And he's taken away more and more of our personal freedoms at every turn to raise your kids how you see fit, to make medical decisions for yourself personally, and so much more. And we're not clapping for Ned doing those things. We're clapping because guess what? The only silver lining to all of this, to 8 years of failure under the Lamont administration and a supermajority of Democrats in the legislature, is this. It's that all across Connecticut, people are waking up to these failures and they are ready for a positive change in leadership. That's why I'm running for governor. This state, like yours, is my home. It has good people and strong communities. All that we need is the right leadership in the state capital in order to pave the way to a brighter future. I'm running for governor to deliver the largest middle-class income tax cut in state history and save the average family thousands and create economic opportunity for all. As governor, I'll eliminate the public benefits tax, cut electric bills by 20%, and create economic opportunity for all. As governor, I'll end sanctuary state status once and for all and always put law-abiding Connecticut residents first. There was a young boy named Liam Rivera. I'll just tell you a quick story. There's a young boy named Liam Rivera in my backyard in Stamford, Connecticut, whose father, Edgar Gomez, was arrested and convicted of assault for beating that young boy. Because of Governor Lamont's sanctuary state law, Edgar Gomez, instead of being transferred to federal authorities for deportation, was released in the public, and just months later, he beat to death that poor 2-year-old boy who was an American citizen. That boy would have been alive today if not for the sanctuary policies of this governor and state legislature. As your governor, as the leader of this state government, I will always put the safety and the lives and the interests of our citizens and our residents ahead of convicted criminals. You have that guarantee from me. And finally, as governor, I will always uphold the oath that I swear before every turn to defend your constitutionally guaranteed liberties, which are a gift from God, not a presumption from government. At every turn, this state legislature is pushing away our God-given freedoms, our constitutional rights, and as governor, I will always stand for your parental rights, your medical freedoms, and your Second Amendment rights. You can be assured of that. It's about time we changed Hartford, save Connecticut, and create a brighter future for everyone in our state. Thank you again for having us. I'm excited for the debate tonight.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Okay, we're going to start with the first round, which I will be asking the questions on this one, and we're going to start with the first question to go to Ryan. Betsy can answer afterward. Today we have more access to information than we've ever had as a species, but at the same time, we have never been less sure about what is true than we are now. Many Democrats can't even tell you what a woman is. The decisions you make as governor will only be as good as the facts on which they are based on. So my first question to you is this. What is truth, and how do you personally discern what is true and what is false?
That's a very important question. It's a very difficult question, and actually a very philosophical one. Listen, when our liberal friends say we believe in science, they're truly bastardizing the term. The scientific revolution and the scientific theory back from the early part of the Enlightenment said what it actually is that you make observations about the world, you test a hypothesis, you see what the results of that test are, and then you check it against the original hypothesis. You have to be willing to look at the facts in an objective manner and have them inform your opinion on what reality is. Sometimes it's difficult to find truth. At the end of the day, truth and morality come not from this earth, but come from what basically we've been given by our Creator. And we have an obligation as people to use the abilities that He has given us to understand what is true in the world. And it's not always easy, but it should not be ideology that we're applying to reality in order to claim what fact is. It should be a objective and open-minded assessment of what the facts on the ground are that inform what we understand truth to be. And so I think that this world, this culture, which has become more closed-minded and more ideological, can do well to remember those eternal truths, that we have been given a gift of reason and those faculties to understand the world around us, and that all of that should be rooted in those timeless truths in the first place.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'd like to apply this very important statement that Ryan said, which is that we should not be basing our conclusions on ideology, but on facts. Let's look at what the Democrats and Lefty Lamont have done to our electric bills by enforcing green ideology on us in defiance of facts. In Connecticut, bill after bill, SB 4, SB 10, others have been passed in the legislature that force into our electric grid very costly, quote, renewable sources of fuel instead of nuclear, natural gas, and other fossil fuels. And the result is that we are paying through the nose. They claim it's because we have to protect the environment. We all love the environment, but there is very little evidence that climate change is caused simply by these fuels. And moreover, there is virtually no verifiable evidence that we, citizens of Connecticut, or our children will benefit from these draconian green solutions like offshore wind or solar as opposed to nuclear and fossil fuels. And yet we are being forced to pay. It's the perfect example of the use of ideology against fact. We have not seen verifiable evidence that we should be paying the third highest electric bills in the nation because of this green ideology. And when I am governor, there will not be those renewable fuel mandates in your electric grid. You will have affordable energy piped in from Pennsylvania when we win in court against Kathy Hochul.
Thank you very much. America was built 250 years ago on the idea of freedom and responsibility. President John Adams famously said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." With belief in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on the decline, especially here in Connecticut, other worldviews are rushing in to fill in that vacuum, including other major faiths and political ideologies that not only contradict our country's ideals, but have proven they are unwilling to coexist with them or us. Which one of these other worldviews, religious or political, do you believe poses the greatest threat to our state, and what steps will you take to prevent them from eroding our values and culture any further? Betsy, you get this one first.
Well, let me start with a educational bill. It was billed as fighting anti-Semitism, a very important cause, but it mandates the study of the Muslim religion and culture in schools. These people are chanting death to America, death to Israel. I do not believe that teaching that faith and culture in our public schools is appropriate. That is one big example. A second big example is that children in the early grades should be taught their ABCs and arithmetic rather than gender ideology and all these other let me just say, departures from Christian values, right? Parents do not want to send their children to school to be indoctrinated in left-wing lifestyles. They want to send their children to school for basic learning. Hands off the beliefs of my children, or in my case, my 6 beautiful grandchildren. One of my grandchildren, little Annabelle, said to me, over breakfast last summer, "You know, Grammy, they told me at school that I could be a boy if I wanted to." I said, "Listen, Annabelle, you were born a girl and you're always going to be a girl." And she said, "Yes, Grammy." That's it. Thank you.
That's a very important question. And listen, I think that generally speaking, cultural radicalism, which seeks to supplant the eternal truths that we talked about and that you discussed in the question, is my greatest fear. If you want a little bit of reason for optimism, it's that our youngest generation has got the joke. They understand that the last generation of the elites in this country seeking to diminish those eternal truths, the values upon which our country was founded, and the binds that tie together our culture and our society, does not leave in its place something good. It actually creates more loneliness, more depression, and people rush to radical ideology in its place to find meaning. But I think young people today, you're starting to see them rediscover the importance of our nation's founding and the most eternal truths of all. You know, you see a resurgence in church attendance among Gen Z in some cases. You hopefully, on the 150th birthday of our great country, will see a renewed interest in our nation's founding and the lessons of the great history of the United States. As governor, I will not only ensure that in our schools we focus teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, but our school children are also ready to become citizens in our state, in our country when they graduate as well. Instead of teaching political ideology in the classroom, we should be teaching the basic facts of our great nation's founding and its history. Every child, when they graduate high school in Connecticut, should be able to pass the equivalent of a citizenship exam. So they're informed about how this country became the greatest force for good in the world, and they are ready to go out into the world and defend those values and perpetuate our great country for the next generation.
Over the past 16 years of total Democrat control of state government, several large companies moved significant portions of their operations from Connecticut to other states. In fact, many of them left even after receiving a bribe, a special incentive to stay. It's painfully obvious that these Democrats do not care about how many companies pull up stakes and leave for greener pastures elsewhere. My question here is not how do we get these companies to stay? I think one of our panelists is going to be asking me that. I'm more interested in knowing this. What will it take for the average Connecticut voter to wake up to the fact that the Democrats that they have been electing year after year do not care about how bad things get for them, and how will you get them to finally snap out of it, but hopefully not like Cher tried to do to Nick Cage in Moonstruck? Brian, we'll go with you first.
Listen, I think people have understood for a long time that Connecticut is unaffordable and that the policies of the state government have made it worse. But I think we're getting close to a breaking point where people can't afford to pay the bills, where the cost of living, inflation, has actually completely dwarfed the raises that they've even in rare cases been able to get. I think we as Republicans have an opportunity to provide an alternative. Yes, it's a state that in recent history has leaned blue, but whether you're a Democrat or Republican in your daily life, you wouldn't accept the third highest electric bills in the country if it means that you can't pay your rent, you can't save for your child's college education, and have any money left over to pay for your health care or other needs at the end of the day. People are hurting in Connecticut more than ever before, and they're looking for a champion, someone to provide steady leadership towards a brighter future. This is a great state with good people. In some ways, the greatness of this state and its people and these communities make it easier to handle the failures of the state government in Hartford. But unfortunately, families all across Connecticut are being broken by this failure of leadership. And I truly believe that if we present a positive alternative, if we not only prosecute the case against this government's failure and this administration's failure, but also show clearly how we can make this the most affordable and best place to live, work, and raise a family imaginable, that we will be victorious. I've won the toughest of fights in this state as a Republican, and I'm ready to take on the toughest fight of all, changing this administration and delivering a brighter future.
This is a turning point election. Connecticut faces rapid continued decline or a Connecticut comeback. But to win this election, especially with a large Democratic and independent base, we must go bold, not baby steps, not $1,500 off your a $1,500 tax rebate or 20% off your electric bill, or what another candidate says is a vague promise of something different. No, we have to have a bold plan that will attract companies back to this state. And that means eliminating the state income tax. These states that I pointed out on the map, they are attracting companies a mile a minute, and companies look more at the state income tax than any other tax measure when they decide where to locate or relocate. The White House Council of Economic Advisors put out a report January 26 that said, specific to Connecticut, if you eliminate the income tax, business startups will increase 25%, and the average wage earner will earn $6,700 more pre-tax, not just what you're saving on your taxes, will earn $6,700 more pre-tax because of the tremendous increase in business activity. And that is why it is so important to go bold in this election with a specific big plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last 16 years of one-party rule have also seen a lot of laws passed that often either subverted the will of our own citizens or went way beyond the proper role of government. In fact, many bills were signed into law that never received a single Republican vote. Of all the bad bills that were passed by the Democrats and signed into law by Governors Malloy and Lamont, give us your top 3 examples that you believe went over the line in allowing state government to intrude into our lives. And of those 3, which law would you like to see repealed the most, and why? Betsy, you get the question first.
I will start because amazingly, and I know my very fine colleague agrees, 3 laws passed in the last session of the legislature, making this session the most disgraceful in Connecticut history. The Democrats really took the Bill of Rights, threw it on the floor, and ground it into the dirt. That's what they think of our Constitution. Absolutely. So what are they? The medical bill that not only strips you of your right to resist a vaccine for yourself and your children in defiance of the Constitution, and it will be knocked out by the Supreme Court, but also includes in Section 8 a provision giving the governor the kind of lockdown and shutdown authority he used during COVID. We now know, and science proves with data, that more people died of deaths of despair, alcoholism, depression, heart disease, because of those lockdowns. People who had spent decades building a business and were forced to close it. People who saw their children deteriorating at home, unable to learn and remotely. There were so many reasons. That bill is terrible, and let me say that I'm already searching for just the right litigation think tank to take that case to the Supreme Court, and Neil Gorsuch has made it very clear in 2 cases, Arizona versus Alvarez and Brooklyn Diocese versus Cuomo, that that case will be struck down. You cannot mandate a vaccine without an exit ramp. The other 2, which I don't have time to discuss, the gun bills, they make a mockery of the Second Amendment, and the homeschooling bill, it implies some sort of suspicion of wonderful parents who want to school their children without indoctrination in the classroom. So I would take those 3 bills and put them right on the top of the list. Shame on those legislators.
Ryan, your top 3, which one would you like to say?
I swear I was going to say the same 3. But it's in part because over the last couple of months, I stood in the state capitol, sometimes until 4 a.m., with homeschool and private school families who simply wanted to protect their God-given rights to make their own choices about how to raise their own kids without the heavy hand of government. These are good people who care about their kids, and they're not asking anything from the government in exchange except the rights to be left alone. And yet this government and this governor with their heavy hand, who fail to deliver their basic responsibilities of a great free public education, of any other number of services at the most basic level, are spending all their power and political capital to take away the constitutionally protected freedoms of law-abiding citizens who are deeply good people in this state. In addition to that, I was one of the very first people testifying against this medical mandate bill, which takes away the most basic religious and personal freedoms, as well as the Glock bill, which I do believe stands a very good chance of being struck down in federal court. But I'll just add a couple more because Betsy stole my answers. But I think they're very important ones with a little bit more perspective on recent history. First, the governor was given $500 million in this past year by the Democrats in charge of this state government in the state legislature to spend without the active approval of the state legislature. You know, people who go around and say no kings and then shred one of the beginning parts of Article 1 of our Constitution, that the legislature has a right to make decisions with your own tax dollars, and giving him unchecked ability to spend $500 million is totally wrong and totally unconstitutional and didn't get enough attention. And then I'll also say the lockdowns and the unconstitutional executive powers for 2 years, well past what most other states allowed for. I wrote a piece in the New York Post a couple of years ago that said lockdowns destroyed livelihoods without saving lives. I was censored by Facebook and other platforms for writing it, but it proved true. Protecting people's freedoms and their way of life is always the right thing to do. I've been willing to stand up for it when it wasn't popular. You better believe I'll be willing to stand up for it as your governor.
There are many national issues that directly affect our state. Everyone focuses on the big ones like the economy, immigration, healthcare, public safety, and government accountability. One that I'm particularly happy about is the fact that the people who gave us this pandemic are finally being indicted. What is one national issue that you feel affects the people of Connecticut, which is not receiving enough attention but should, and why? Ryan, you get this question first.
I don't know that it's not receiving enough attention, but I don't think it's been litigated in Connecticut effectively. And I've launched my campaign talking about the fact that the super sanctuary state status here in Connecticut is serving as a magnet for the most hardened and violent of criminals who aren't even in the country illegally in the first place to come to Connecticut. As nationally, you see other places crack down on criminals who are in the country illegally, you're going to see them flock to a place like Connecticut where they know that this governor is actively protecting them from any sort of detaining or transfer to federal authorities. That includes people like Edgar Gomez. It includes someone like the 20-year-old from Guatemala who recently was arrested for sexual abuse of a minor. But instead of being turned over to the federal government for deportation and arrest, he would be allowed out in public, endangering our citizens, including our young people, because of the sanctuary law passed by this governor. Again, this is an issue not just of safety, but also affordability, because we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars in this state when other people can't afford their health care or their utility bill on people who broke the law to come into our country in the first place. This is wrong, it's unfair, it's an affordability issue, and most importantly, it's a safety issue for our most vulnerable citizens. I'll end that status once and for all and put our citizens in Connecticut first.
Yes, I'd like to add to this that the vilification of ICE has done a grave disservice to Connecticut and other states. And I'm fully in support of, in fact, I made a suggestion of this to the president, renaming ICE NICE. These are nice people, National Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Doesn't that make sense? Let's call them NICE, right? Well done. I have another issue, though, and that is the left's forcing of transgender issues in our schools and particularly our sports. This has had a terrible impact on young women in sports all across the country, including right here in Connecticut, where girls who don't want to take their clothes off in a locker room in front of a male, someone born male, are vilified as being intolerant or prejudiced. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. And fortunately, Our great president is standing up against it, but it's going to take a long time to put a stop to it because it's being litigated in state courts and federal courts all over this country. But thank goodness that the president and his Department of Education are helping us to tamp down this bizarre event that will soon be over, right?
Thank you very much. Speaking of our president, that is the next thing I did want to address. Like it or not, Donald Trump is the face of the Republican Party. Unfortunately, more people pay attention to his persona than his America First policies, which for the most part have been beneficial for our country. So here's the question. How do you plan to win the votes of both the Trump lover and the Trump hater in a way that won't turn off either one of them? And Betsy, you go first.
Well, as I've been campaigning around the state, I do not conceal the fact that I was named to President Trump's 2016 transition team and respect the president greatly. But I'm running to do what's best for Connecticut. The president is very occupied doing what's best for America. And so I've got my focus on Connecticut issues, particularly eliminating the state income tax. I will concede, however, that the president's chief economic advisor, Steve Moore, worked with me closely on this plan, and the Council of Economic Advisors is pushing hard for all states burdened by these huge income taxes to get rid of them. They call it the economy killer. So my message is Trumpian in that sense, but I'm an independent candidate, standing tall for Connecticut, and at the same time saluting our great commander-in-chief.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
That's a great question, Mark. I have a record of winning some of the toughest races of any Republican in the state of Connecticut. I represent a state Senate district that Kamala Harris won by 17% in the last election. And I didn't know she could win anywhere by 17%. But not only that, my opponent in the last race spent $700,000 to try to unseat me. $200,000 more than the next most expensive campaign in state legislative history. And yet I won, and I won by thousands of votes, more than I ever had before in a presidential election year. I got 20% of the electorate in my district to cross their ballot. And I did so by focusing on the issues that matter most to the people we aim to serve in our daily lives. Listen, let's remember some eternal truths. You got to love your neighbor. You act as a leader, as a servant leader, I think properly understood. And you try to make the lives of everyone you serve, whether they vote for you or not, better at the end of the day. I believe we can win everyone's vote if we're unafraid, if we focus on the things that matter most to Connecticut residents, making this the most affordable, most safe state in the entire country and the best place to raise a family imaginable. I've won in the toughest areas against all the money in the world. I know I can win statewide the same exact way. Servant leadership and focusing on the things that matter most to the people that we aim to serve, and never ever getting confused that the people who lead our government serve the public and not the other way around.
Amen. One final question before I let you go. Pretend that today is Wednesday, August 12th, and you did not win the primary election to be the Republican candidate for governor. What will you do after that? Will you make a bid to continue to run independently? Will you pick up your toys and go home? Or will you pledge your people and your resources to the candidate who did win so that we can unite our party's base, defeat Lamont, and save our state? Ryan, you're up first.
The first thing I'll do is wholeheartedly endorse the Republican nominee for governor, making no two ways about it. The second thing I'll do is take my fiance on a date, which she will by then have well earned. And the third thing I'll do is go right back on the campaign trail to campaign for our Republican candidates up and down the ticket, because this is about our state and its future. It's not about any one of us as an individual. I wholeheartedly will support the Republican ticket and the Republican gubernatorial nominee, no matter who they are.
I second Ryan's answer. It's absolutely the correct answer. We're all in this together. We're Republicans. We have the values and the principles and the plans that will make this a state great, and I also look forward to supporting and actively campaigning for whoever is the winner of the August primary.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Betsy. That concludes the portion of the debate. We're going to take a quick 5-minute recess, and then we'll be back with our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, folks, we're going to get started up in a minute, so if you could please retake your seats, we will start the second portion of the debate. Thank you.
Right.
All right,
No,
folks,
we're-
we're going to get back
That was
underway.
funny. Yeah, that made me laugh.
Before we do, I just want to remind everyone in the room, I don't know if you folks are aware of this or not, but the Connecticut Republican Assembly has set a goal of filling every single state rep seat and state senate seat with a candidate this year.
That's
So
super
if you
important.
know of someone who's interested in running, please reach out to us and let us know. We will help those folks get qualified, and we'll try to get them elected, hopefully. And we need to give these guys some help up here on this stage, because they can't do this on their own. We're going to have to flip that legislature as well. So any help that you can give us, if you know people who may be thinking about running, please reach out to us. Now we're going to move on to the panelist portion of our debate. Our first panelist comes from the business world. He sold his insurance business last year and is currently studying for his MBA at the University of Iowa. From Tolland, Connecticut, please welcome Jonathan Anderson. Our second panelist comes from the political world. She has served as a town councilor since 2017. She also ran for Congress in 2020 and for comptroller in 2022. From West Hartford, please welcome Mary Fay. Our final panelist is from the faith world. He is the pastor of the First Congregational Church in Woodbury, which is the oldest continuously operating church in Connecticut. And he is also the president of CTRA's Litchfield County chapter. Please welcome Pastor Jake Dell. So we'll go one by one. We'll start with you, Jonathan, at the end. Jonathan, take it away.
Since Daniel Malloy took office from Jody Rell, continued into Netherlands, the state of Connecticut has lost several major corporate headquarters like General Electric, UTC, Aetna, Alexian Pharmaceuticals, Edible Arrangements, Lego, and most recently Duracell announcing their selling headquarters in Bedford. Between 2008 and 2018, the state had a net loss of approximately 6.4% of businesses. How will you incentivize corporations to move their headquarters to Connecticut to bring back jobs? We'll start with you, Ryan.
Listen, there needs to be 100 policy changes and a complete break from the failures of the past under the Lamont administration in order to create jobs and opportunity for all. But I'll focus on four big ways. First, as governor, I'll pass the largest middle-class tax cut in state history. We'll cut the income tax for the middle class by more than ever before, and we'll also create tax relief for investing in the plants, property, and equipment that are necessary to create the jobs for the long term. That might be the most pro-growth tax reform of all, when companies can deduct the cost of investing in the plants and the property and the equipment, the fixed assets that can't go anywhere else, which means that jobs will be created, productivity and wage growth will occur for everybody across the board. Second, we need to cut energy rates by at least 20%. You could do that four ways. First, cut the public benefits tax. Second, cut the renewable portfolio standard. Third, withdrawal from the RGGI. And fourth, finally get that natural gas pipeline capacity built out from the west. Third, we need to cut healthcare costs. One of the most common things I hear from entrepreneurs and small business owners is the rising cost of healthcare. Republicans cannot be afraid to talk about this issue. They must confront it head on. After all, the Democrats have been in charge of the state for a generation while the healthcare costs keep going up. We need to introduce association health plans to give people more choice in health insurance, and also repeal certificate of need laws to cut the actual cost of delivering healthcare. Fourth and finally, we need to end the red tape. As governor, I'll cut 2 regulations for every one that's advanced. We need to get the bureaucrats off the backs of job creators and workers. They're stifling wages and opportunity, and we could do so much better.
I second all those things, but let me point out 2 things. First, I also believe in deregulation. But I go with President Trump's rule. Cut 10 regulations for every new one you impose. 10, not 2, because the weight of regulation is killing business. Number 2, of course it's good to have a tax break. $1,500 is what my very fine competitor has often mentioned, $1,500 per family. But it does not attract businesses back to this state or new businesses to come in. The President's Council of Economic Advisors reiterates the advice given by most economists. The single biggest factor that corporations look at when they determine where they will come, build a business, and hire is the income tax, the personal income tax, not the corporate tax, not the sale tax, not the property taxes. It is key that we eliminate in a gradual and fiscally responsible way, like the map that I showed you. 18 states have done it or are doing it. Eliminate the income tax. It is vital. We must take that bold step to begin Connecticut's future. Thirdly, of course, healthcare is an important part of that, and there are many things that this state can do to lower the cost of health insurance. It's been my field for many years. And number 4, we must provide skilled wage earners, not all these intellectuals. We need a lot of people who know how to weld and wire and do other things, the skilled trades. Connecticut should be the New England hub for skilled trades. Not everybody should have to go to college. They should be able to graduate from high school with training and skills to make a really good living.
Just address one
Yes.
thing on the tax item. So, listen, I think, first of all, I think the income tax, there should be a shared goal of ending it once and for all. The question is how you're going to get there and what you deliver in your first term, and explain very clearly how to get there. I would deliver about $1 billion of reductions in future spending, $1 billion in savings from reducing the special carve-outs in the tax code for politically connected corporations and industries, and also reduce debt finance spending on the nice-to-haves, the earmarks, and so on and so forth. All the stuff like taxpayer subsidies for illegal immigrants, that can cut $2 billion for the tax relief into the future. So we should all share the goal of eliminating the tax once and for all.
Yay! Yay! Thank you.
And we should be very clear how we're going to get there,
Yes.
and how much we're going to save in our first term. I think if you just go on your Excel spreadsheet and plug in 2.5%, if you plug in 2.5% growth on the revenue and 0% growth on the spending, you could eliminate half the tax revenue in 27 years. So we need to be clear how we're going to move the ball down the field and cut the spending in order to deliver the relief. That makes it most likely. I think my plan is the best alternative for moving forward.
I'd like to address this one. This is a great debate.
This is like, it is a debate, actually.
So if you look at this map, all these yellow states are doing it. And South Carolina is yellow now. They passed the same legislation I'm proposing in Connecticut 2 weeks ago. It's a smart state. What you do is you announce you're going to 0. Business activity picks up right away. And then the law says when revenue increases 5% over the current baseline, All that new revenue must go to axing the tax. It cannot be used like Lefty does to constantly create new programs. He's convinced that he can spend your money better than you can, but he's wrong. So if you do that, it takes about 5 to 7 years, depending on economic growth across the nation, for many of these states to get to zero. But we must embrace the plan and start. We have to give our young people the hope that Connecticut will be the next booming, prosperous state in the Northeast. Thank you.
Right. It's great to be here today, and based on serving in the People's Republic of West Hartford for 4 terms with a high mill rate, it's a major concern. So we've heard a lot of you talk about income tax and abating that and getting rid of that, and I applaud you for that. But what we are really dependent on in the state is property taxes. It's driving seniors out of their homes. They're paying after their mortgages are done. You know, my town in particular is almost hitting 50 mill rates. Taxes are very, very high. A lot of this is due to unfunded state mandates that municipals have to manage. How are you going to address this, and how are we going to take away the dependence on the property tax rates, and how can we get some of this burden, especially for seniors? And I think Betsy's first.
Yes, thank you so much. This is a critically important issue. We're being crushed by property taxes. Property values have gone up about 60% over the last 5 years, but it doesn't mean you have more money in your pocket to pay extra taxes. And the culprit is a state law that forces your towns to reassess home values every 5 years, whether they want to or not. That statute is unconstitutional violation of Connecticut's own constitution. It violates the home law principle. I will go to court to defeat it, but in the meantime, on day one as governor, I will freeze it and push through the legislature a bipartisan bill to cap annual property tax hikes at 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is lower. And for seniors, you raised that very important point. There are 503,000 senior households in our state. 235,600 of those own their own home and earn less than $100,000 a year. You know if you're one of those, right? If you own a home and you earn less than $100,000 a year, property taxes for you will be in the rear view mirror. You've paid long enough. You supported your town school system. You deserve relief.
I'm excited I get to say this, but we need to go bigger and bolder than that. I can't believe anyone would want to miss out on this fun in this debate. Anyway, so I think that this needs to be a top priority, and it needs to be the second or first priority in this campaign, because everywhere I go across this state, property taxes is the first or second greatest concern that I hear, and it hurts seniors and working class families most of all. The biggest culprit, as you said, Mary, is the unfunded mandates from Hartford. There are 1,400 unfunded mandates that the state government imposes on our towns and cities, which is really what's responsible for driving up the cost of local government and property taxes across Connecticut to the third highest in the country. We need to start by eliminating hundreds of the 1,400 unfunded mandates on our towns and cities, which will be the real source of property tax relief in our state. And not only that, it will give our towns and cities more freedom to choose their own destiny and deliver services better than ever before. First, we need to eliminate hundreds of unfunded mandates on our towns and cities. Second, we need a steady and predictable ECS formula to fund our schools in a way that is free of politics. If you're a legislator in power, or you're a friend of a legislator in power, you shouldn't be able to get your town that much more funding. It should be formulaic and predictable so towns can count on it and expect exactly what they're getting into the future rather than have it subject to politics. And then we should also do the freezing, the capping of the rates into the future, the same way other states have done. That will ensure that waste and growth of government doesn't get excessive into the future. We can do this, and we can win on this issue.
We've got a plan.
We got a plan.
Connecticut was founded by Puritans, and Christianity has shaped this state's institutions, laws, and civic identity from the beginning. All you have to do is look at the state's motto. Beyond protecting religious freedom for Christians and non-Christian religions alike, what concrete steps would you take as governor to positively promote and acknowledge Christianity's place in Connecticut, both in its heritage and today? And given that mobilizing Christian voters could be decisive in November, are you prepared to do sustained, direct outreach to that constituency, and what would that look like?
That's a great question, Pastor Jake. And, my faith is the most important thing to me. And I have been willing to speak about it publicly. And in some ways, I'm surprised that, I haven't seen more Republicans and public officials speak about their faith publicly. Actually, the public officials I most frequently hear speak about their faith publicly are many of my black colleagues in the state legislature, for whom their faith and their church is so integral to their community. And when we talk about faith outreach, we can win in any community, and we can touch any voters, maybe even who haven't been accustomed to voting Republican or getting out to vote at all, by talking about the things that unite us, which in this state and in this country, I do foremost believe are our faith, and for me, my Christian faith. And on the campaign trail, this is very important too. Just to speak what you deeply believe. I've already on this campaign had outreach to the Christian community, to our churches and our faith leaders. And that's important, I think, for us as Republicans, especially because it's what is deep down in our heart. So I'll never shy away as a leader in this state from speaking about my faith as a Christian. And I think that example will help build bridges and build community and hopefully set an example of faith for all in Connecticut.
What I'd like to add is that I'd like to support families of faith throughout the state by providing real school choice and making it economically affordable for parents to send their children to religious schools without being clobbered financially for it. President Trump has offered a very important program that will allow school choice that includes religious schools. And the Supreme Court has recently ruled that religious schools are just as entitled to these funds as non-religious private schools. So we have to do that. But Lefty Lamont and his left-wing cronies are resisting President Trump's very important program to have federal support and tax support for school choice, including private and religious schools. And I am backing 100% the effort to allow parents to affordably send their children to parochial schools.
I would just like to say Betsy's exactly right. On hour one of my administration, I'll opt into the federal school tax credit. It's $1,700 per individual of free money from the federal government. There are no drawbacks to it, no cost to the state of Connecticut. All that's stopping us is a governor who would rather curry favor to special interests than protect the rights of families to make educational decisions for their own kids.
Well done.
Well done by you. You reminded me.
With over 200,000 people leaving the state between 2010 and 2020, and additional departures from COVID on, a lot of Republicans, including their tax money, have left the state. The current state government has continued to raise fees and taxes on the remaining people in the state to cover the losses of those departures. Along with incentivizing companies to move to Connecticut, what are your plans for adjusting the current budgetary needs to reflect the taxpayer losses if businesses choose not to come here?
We have to spend less. Get it? The money belongs in your pocket, not in the government's pocket. That's clear. When everybody talks about you can't eliminate the income tax, you can't cut this tax or that tax because it'll be so cruel not to fund all those government programs. I think that the most important thing is to make sure that the people who work hard in this state get to keep more of their money. So that's right. So spending less is my number one priority. That's why I've had no hesitation about eliminating the state income tax. All that new revenue that comes in should be just for axing the tax. We have to make sure we cut every part of the government. And here are a couple of things specifically I would do. Earmarks. Believe it or not, in the state of Connecticut, each legislator, Republican and Democrat, gets a pot of your money, your tax money, that they can distribute to any not-for-profit or other organization in their own district with no accountability, absolutely none, and no measurement afterwards of what kind of good was produced. And the Black and Hispanic caucus members and the Asian and Pacific caucus members get each an extra $150,000 just because of the color of their skin, an atrocious case of reverse racism. But the real focus here is there should be no earmarks. We have to clean house in Hartford, and that's why I'm presenting myself as the outsider willing to do it. Thank you.
Very important question and the exact right question. Connecticut does not have a revenue problem. It has a spending problem. And anyone running for this office who wants to promise relief needs to be very clear about how they are going to tighten the belt of government. I voted against a state budget recently, and we had this debate with a lot of concerns. But first of all, we need to strengthen the budget guardrails that this governor has eviscerated over the last 8 years. He inherited them. They were passed on a bipartisan basis. They limited debt and spending moderately in Connecticut over the last 9 years, and he has destroyed them. He has basically broken his promise to the public that he would protect the guardrails and therefore protect taxpayers. So first, we need to protect and strengthen those budget guardrails, which limit spending through a spending cap. That spending cap should be across the board, limit debt, and pay down the unfunded liabilities that need to be paid down. That's the big picture structure for budgeting. We also need zero-based budgeting. Everything should be justifying itself every 2 years rather than automatically funded. So that means that we would be able to limit the growth of spending, but then there's also very clear specifics. We need to end taxpayer subsidies for illegal immigrants. It's one thing you come here to this country illegally, but to get taxpayer dollars from people in Connecticut who can't afford to pay their utility bills or their prescription drugs is just damn wrong, and it needs to end, and it's driving up the cost of our taxes and the cost of our living. And finally, we need to end the other political spending. End the earmarks outright, as Betsy said. And not only that, cut the bureaucracy, the automatic growth in personnel in departments when it's not delivering a public interest or a public benefit. We can solve the spending problem, but it needs to start by electing people who understand that we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem.
Right. Amen.
How true. I think we need to talk about some hard realities, and I know you're all both tremendously aware of this. We know what the situation is in the House and the Senate, where Republicans are a big minority. It's not even close. How will you, as our next governor, Republican governor, pass or veto legislation with a Democrat supermajority? How will you help get Republican legislators elected and Democrats to see and vote for common sense proposals that the people want? Thank you.
It's a great question, Mary, and a super important question for our Republican nominee, one that needs to be answered before we actually choose our nominee. First, I have the best track record of any Republican in the state of winning the toughest elections. Again, it's one thing to win a state Senate district in a presidential election that Kamala Harris won by 17%. It's an entire other to do it against the most expensive state Senate campaign in state history, against the Deputy Chief of Staff of Governor Lamont himself. I've won in the toughest of circumstances. I can win statewide in a state that Harris only won by 13%. And we won't get outspent 2-1 this time. Second, we need to invest up and down the ticket. As was said before, every single seat held by a Democrat should go challenged. Voters deserve a choice. No sitting official should go unchallenged in this state. That's second. Third, I'm going to spend as much time as I can in the swing districts in this election. If I can spend an extra hour in a place where there is a swing state legislative district versus not, I'm always going to do it in the swing district because we need to win up and down the ticket. Next, we need to win for the future. This isn't about winning one election, calling yourself governor, and patting yourself on the back. This is about winning the future and future elections and making sure we have policy victories and that they're lasting. I'll use the bully pulpit. I already believe that I am clearly the best fundraiser of any Republican in the state, but I'll use the bully pulpit to bring in the resources nationally to our state so we can finally build a party infrastructure and win for the future. And finally, as governor, I'll stand up to the Democratic majority, use the line item veto power liberally, you could say. But not only that, I have a record of actually getting things done even in the minority. Co-authoring and passing 7 laws that have cut the size of government, including the law that requires the utilities to publish the public benefits charge every month so you know that you're getting ripped off. And finally, we can mobilize and motivate people to end it once and for all.
Well, yes, I am anticipating winning with a Democratic majority, but not the kind of supermajority we have now, because I will be campaigning with candidates for the state legislature across this state. My goal is not just to be a governor winning. I want to have long coattails and create a red wave in this state that will take over a large part of the legislature and empower all of us to have an opportunity state again. So once I'm through the convention, I'm going to be working with state legislators in swing districts all over the state to bring them with me, like with coattails, like tail feathers, right? That's the idea. And that is critically important. Secondly, I will use the line item veto. It's also in use in New York, and I think it's a very, very powerful tool to stop the spendaholics and taxaholics that have captured the legislature. So those are my 2 proposals to be effective. Let me just say, I am not running for governor as a stepping stone to a higher job. Maybe you've guessed, right? I'm running because I know I have a plan that can turn this state around. I have a plan. We can put it into effect and make a dramatic change in the state in the next 4 years. And I'm sure that I will have enough legislators coming in this red wave with me to make it happen.
Article 1st of the Connecticut State Constitution gives the state government, guarantees the freedom of religion in this state, but it also gives the state the power to police churches that promote public harm or licentious behavior. I called out a church in Hartford that I thought was promoting licentious and behavior in public harm, and the Attorney General, William Tong, instead of investigating the church, went after me instead. Would you use the power of your office to police churches that are not only promoting things like transgenderism, but also liquidating their assets and taking advantage of loopholes like, which was just recently passed, where Main Street properties become valuable for low-income housing? And that money then leaves the state and goes to denominational headquarters in places like New York or Ohio. What will you do about these renegade churches?
Sounds like criminal behavior to me, right? And if it's criminal behavior, then of course the Attorney General and the governor should be right on it. On the other hand, let me point out, I do believe in freedom of religion. I am very committed to the First Amendment. So I'm not going to persecute a church because it disagrees with my faith or even my politics. But if it's criminal behavior, of course. And let me say a few words in this moment I have about our current Attorney General. He is a liar and a disservice to our state. I recently went up to Hartford to break in on one of his press conferences where he was holding up a bill that he and Ned Lamont, lefty, support that will limit the ability of ICE to apprehend even the most dangerous criminals. And he stood in front of the press, including this nice NBC person here, and said that this was to protect illegals as they pray in church or seek health care. The truth is that that bill that they pushed through had 3 pages, pages 14 to 16, a list of every single place that illegals could not be apprehended. It included parade grounds, public gatherings, every public building of any sort, literally any place a human being would walk except maybe Dunkin' Donuts. So the fact is, they were making it impossible for ICE to apprehend these criminal illegals and get them off our streets. It's one example of how I'm going to call out this Attorney General. He's a liar, and he must be beaten in the next election.
My greatest concern in this state in the short run and the long run is religious liberty, especially for Christians with deeply held religious beliefs. I see in the legislature every single year more and more efforts to roll back the rights of deeply held practicing Catholics and Christians from doing what they think is right and instead circumscribing their rights and forcing them to try to do things against their deeply held religious beliefs. I think in the long run in this country, it's no surprise that we've seen faith succeed and this country be one of the most faithful in the developed world when we have freedom of religion in comparison to other countries in the Western world who have much less faith, much less church going, and there is kind of state control of religion. So in the long run, my priority and greatest concern is protecting our First Amendment rights as Americans and Connecticut residents, because I think we need to think for the long run and be as strategic as possible in protecting our First Amendment rights, which come first for a very good reason.
Small businesses are struggling to offer benefits similar to corporations, resulting in a top-heavy corporate-run state.
Yeah.
Part of this is due to the health insurance costs, and among other things, lack of tax credits. How do you intend on balancing the playing field for small business owners and employees to shift talent back towards Main Street and away from Wall Street, or do you have a different strategy or plan to help lower small business costs?
That's a great question, and I think history and economics clearly show that when government grows, taxes increase, and more control is concentrated in government rather than in the private sector and private life, that you see the little guy hurt most of all, right? Progressivism and ideology and this state government and state leadership have hurt most the people that they purport to help. You add more and more regulations and red tape in the state government, and it's not the big business that gets hurt. They have all the lawyers and the lobbyists and the accountants in the world and the scale to actually handle those, and actually perhaps might even profit more in the long run from the fact that smaller businesses and competition is undercut because of it. Our small businesses are the ones who will benefit the most from having more efficient, less red tape, and more affordable government, generally speaking. So when you talk about things like all the healthcare regulations, I hear it most from small business owners, how it's made it impossible to compete with the large corporations to offer benefits because they don't have the risk pools, they can't handle the costs. And so we need things like association health plans and reforms of the healthcare sector, which will drive down insurance costs and allow smaller businesses to compete. It's also why we should have more regulations not go into effect for companies that are below a certain size, whether it's 50 employees or 100 employees or more. Our small businesses are not just about reducing costs and bringing employment to the state. Yes, they do all those things. It's also about keeping our neighborhoods and communities whole. Our small businesses make our towns and cities better places. They make the social bonds in our towns and cities that much tighter. We have to reduce the size and cost of government and create jobs and opportunity, especially in small business, not just a matter of economic growth, but also as a matter of making our communities as wonderful as possible.
As soon as you asked that question, I remembered Ronald Reagan's wonderful comment. He said the scariest thing he ever heard is when a man said, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you," right? Couldn't possibly be true. So, with that in mind, 3 things I'd like to point out. One is that the biggest way we can create more business startups in this state, and I know many of you here and at home watching, know somebody who dreams of starting their own business. It's one of those American dreams. We must eliminate the state income tax because the president's advisors ratify the concept that if we eliminate the state income tax, business startups in this state will surge 25%. And that will include somebody in your family or your neighbor who wants to start a business. Secondly, health insurance. There are 2 very important things in addition to association plans that will be helpful. Believe it or not, before Obamacare, insurance companies turned down, denied claims 1.5% of the time. Now they do it 15% of the time. That's 10 times as often. Some companies as much as 30% of the time. Quite a few states are addressing that problem with, this is a good regulation, to limit how often claims can be denied. But not Connecticut, which is in the pocket of the insurance companies. Not Connecticut. Secondly, prior approvals. You never even heard of a requirement for prior approvals before Obamacare. But now you go to the doctor, you're examined, the doctor recommends a treatment or a medication, and now you have to wait a week or 2 for the prior authorization from your insurance company. Many states, including Tennessee, are eliminating that. Connecticut should too.
You mentioned a lot of things about businesses being an American dream. I think home ownership is still a very key part, especially for the younger generations. And home ownership is also a key wealth creator, and often it's a family's largest asset. I think you shared your opinions of Connecticut's draconian housing laws, which strip municipalities of local zoning control and for low-income apartments in single-family zones. If you become governor, how are you going to remove this awful, awful law? Thank you.
Great question. Is it Betsy first? I got excited.
Okay, well, I'll tell you how I'm going to do it, and then I'm very interested in how my colleague is going to do it. I'm going to do it the way we did it in the executive branch. I have a lot of experience in that branch. And when you have a law as bad as this one, you don't wait to repeal it. Here's what you do. You slow walk it. Slow walk it. You slow walk it until it dies of its own inertia. You do a study of every sentence in that bill. It'll take 40 years. In the meantime, it's sitting in my desk, and that's the end of it. Now, I believe that this is
your side of the stage.
Yeah. I just want to point out that this is such an important question because home ownership is such an American dream. Lefty has made it into the impossible dream. But the fact is that we can win this election in November by fighting Lefty Lamont's takeover of zoning and attack on home ownership, because it is so important, not just to Republicans, but to Democrats and independents. 68% of Connecticut households own their own home. That's 3 times as high as the Republican registration. So if we fight for homeowners, if we champion home ownership, we will win those Democratic and independent votes and sweep the state in November. And I'm going to sing my little song for you.
I know.
Okay. We're together every night. Owners vote red. Renters vote blue. Fight for homeowners, it'll make a winner out of you. Wow, how do you like that?
Listen, in all seriousness, this is a very important and winning issue for us as Republicans, because whether you're a voter who's registered Democrat or Republican or unaffiliated, you bought a home, you saved up, you've lived in a neighborhood for decades. And the idea that the state government, with all its bureaucracy and out-of-state giant developers, can come in and build 100 units next to your single-family zone home is just unacceptable. It's not what anybody wants in this state. This is a winning issue for us as Republicans. This governor broke his promise to defend local control of zoning and housing decisions and signed House Bill 8002. I take broken promises seriously, and I believe voters do too. And we'll prosecute the case against this governor and his broken promise on local control when he signed that into law. I don't think there's any issue that I won more moderate Democratic voters in my blue-leaning district than local control of zoning and housing decision-making. We need to repeal House Bill 8002, end 830G, and find real and lasting ways with local input to make housing more accessible and affordable for all, including that historic property tax reform that we talked about, right? We can do this, and we can win on this issue, especially if we nominate a candidate who has won in the difficult circumstances on this issue before. This is an unappreciated weakness of this governor, and we can win this general election by fighting on this ground.
Before Pastor Joe asks his final question, we are going to set up a few questions from the audience. So if I could have 3 people from the audience come up and stand behind me and get prepared while Pastor Dell asks his final question.
Yale University, that school in New Haven. As governor, you will be ex officio a member of the Yale Corporation, which I think has largely been a ceremonial position. But how would you use the power, the latent power of your office to crush wokeness on that campus and help organizations like the Buckley Institute restore freedom of speech and academic freedom to this world-famous university?
This, of all the questions we've gotten, this is my favorite in the entire debate. This is an important issue. The issue of, the universities, their tax-exempt status, and civil rights of students. A couple of years ago, a Native American student at Yale Law School, who also was politically conservative, basically had his spot in Yale Law threatened by the administration in the most thuggish of manner because he was a political conservative, and off campus he sent an email that was deemed slightly off color or unreasonable. And it, listen, you have a tax-exempt organization with tens of billions of dollars of resources violating the civil rights of individual students. The state has an interest, especially when this university is specifically carved out in the Constitution. And just as before, this is a winning issue. I have proposed bill every single year I've been in the legislature to make Yale's $40 billion endowment subject to the capital gains and dividends tax and use that revenue to cut taxes on the middle class. Not only that, we need to reform the state law or the state constitution to ensure that New Haven can actually receive property tax revenue as Yale expands more and more, because that is hurting working class residents in New Haven. Remember in COVID when Yale administrators sent out an email to their students saying, oh, you can't go outside of Yale's campus because you might get infected, and like they're basically saying the rest of New Haven is like dirty or bad. I mean, that's the ideology in this day and age on a campus like that. We need to have fairness, make sure that we allow New Haven to apply property taxes within reason to Yale so they can lower property taxes on the working class residents of New Haven. And guess what? We normally win 15% of the vote in New Haven. When I'm the candidate for governor running on this proposal, we can win thousands of more supporters in places we never thought by ensuring that there is tax fairness for the working class people of New Haven.
I second that proposal. It's extremely good. And I will say this, the wokeness on college campuses is extremely depressing to all of us who have sent our children, saved our hard-earned money and sent our children to college. I used to teach at Columbia constitutional history, and it was so disturbing to me to see how in most classrooms, not mine, but in most classrooms, students had no freedom at all to express their own political views, to ask intelligent questions if they conflicted with the views of the professor standing in the front of the classroom. It's staggering to me that we have tolerated this for so long, and parents work so hard to send their children to these ideology mills, these indoctrination mills, and certainly when they violate the First Amendment liberties of their students, they should lose all tax-exempt status. And I'm counting on President Trump to move in that direction.
Thank you to our panelists for the second round of those questions. Now we have a few questions from our audience here, and who do we have here first?
Hi, my name is Polish Agnes. How are you guys? So I'm an immigrant. I came here 20 years ago. I'm Polish, as you can probably see by my accent, but I have made my life possible here in Connecticut, and I have been here for about 20 years. So I have about 2 questions that I don't really necessarily hear you guys talking about. I'm a landlord. So I would like you to explain what can you do for landlords in Connecticut, because currently the laws that are been passing are really, really bad. Mm-hmm. For the squatters law, mm-hmm. and which also touches the homelessness at this point, mm-hmm. because for some reason Democrats think that squatters are homeless, and they do want to mandate the landlords to keep the homeless in their houses. So what do you guys can do for us?
Well, first of all, shout out to Polish Americans. My stepmom is Polish, and her parents came directly from Poland. And her father actually was locked up in the Soviet gulags as a young boy under Stalin. And there's so many great people from Poland who immigrated legally to the United States. Very, very, very religious country, too. State Senator Rob Sampson is here somewhere. One of my whose support I'm very, very fortunate to have in this race. And he has been, I think, a real leader on this subject in the state Senate. Because, listen, I think the best argument we have here is you want more affordability in housing? You want to help our economy and reduce cost of living? Well, there won't be any housing available if you make the laws so punitive to landlords mm-hmm. that they can't evict people who are trying to cheat, who aren't doing the right thing, and are making things more dangerous locally in the neighborhood as well. So we need more sensible laws. Ironically, the people talking about affordable housing all the time are making housing and rent so much more unaffordable with their insane laws that make it impossible for property owners to exercise their own rights and as they see fit.
I'd also like to make a shout out to Poland. I've been to Poland, to Warsaw. I went there when Bronislaw Geremek was writing the Constitution. We worked together, and it's a wonderful place. I was thrilled to be there at that time of real liberation in Warsaw. So shout out to all the Polish people in Poland as well. even though they can't vote for us, right, Ryan? and secondly, Ryan is absolutely right that if you wage war against landlords, you won't have a lot of affordable housing. There's something else going on in the legislature that is extremely damaging to all of us. And you mentioned it when you talked about homelessness. The Democrats have tried to legitimate sleeping in the rough on the street as a viable, acceptable lifestyle. And in the housing law that Lefty signed in December, and in another that he's trying to push through, towns are literally prohibited from discouraging vagrancy. You have to have park benches without sides or a middle divider so vagrants can sleep overnight in the park. You are prohibited from punishing vagrants who defecate or urinate on the sidewalk. Now picture what this does to a small town. I like to give my grandchildren some pocket money when they're 10 or 11 or 12 and say, you can walk around town and go to the park. But you can't do that when there are people in the park in tents sleeping in your town. And I'm just going to cite one statistic that shows how dangerous it is. In Los Angeles, the homeless account for 1% of the population and 25% of the homicides. And the Cicero Institute points out that in Connecticut particularly, people actually living in the rough on the street, 41% are registered sex offenders. You don't want this happening to your town.
Very much. Can we have the next person here? What's your name?
Hi, Kathy Moore. I've been a state employee for 38 years. My question to you is about the budget. What are your thoughts on the privatization of state employee jobs and services? And if you are for it, how do you believe it would impact the workers, the taxpayers, and the quality of public services?
I'm going to answer part of that. I think something very bad, first of all, the budget is too big, $28.7 billion. But what's really bad is this. Over the last decade, many social services that were provided by the state with real oversight have now been moved to not-for-profits. And this is a real scam against all of us. So now they have not-for-profits, they award them a contract to feed the homeless or to provide shelter or many other social services. Very little oversight, highly politicized. All that money is going to organizations that, yes, they spend some of the money providing those services, but they also use a lot of it for get-out-the-vote armies against Republicans on Election Day. It's got to stop. I hope that answers your question. Better to have the state employees providing those services with oversight and accountability.
Listen, I would say it's a very complicated question because the answer is really, it depends. There are areas of state government or government generally that are far too big or that are doing something, a job that is better left to our civil sector or our private sector. And if government grows so much that we can't afford it, in the long run, it's going to be worse for the state employees who are expecting something, and ultimately the ship of government is going to capsize and no one's going to be able to afford it. At the same time, there are roles that the state government needs to do or any government needs to do that are very clear that can't be done elsewhere. And in part because, as Betsy said, some of these nonprofits are taking advantage of the taxpayer dime. And so one of the alternatives that I've proposed now twice in the last 2 weeks on the Senate floor, which, by the way, was voted down by Democrats on party lines both times, is very, very normal and minimal vetting procedures for the nonprofits to everyone's benefit, to say, what's the use of funds? What are your historical financials? What do your tax returns say? Who's on the board? Is there a conflict of interest with anyone in the legislature voting on that money? Who's the legislator sponsoring that earmark, and so on and so forth. There are areas where the nonprofit sector can deliver services more affordably and nimbly than government, but there are also basic responsibilities of government, and there needs to be a balance to the benefit of the taxpayer and the state as a whole.
We're going to take one more question from Linda.
Thank you. Linda Sikowitz. When you're elected governor, will you set up your own commission to doge every single department in the state of Connecticut?
Ryan, you go first.
Listen, I am running for office because government is too damn big and too damn costly in the state of Connecticut. So the answer is absolutely yes, obviously. And it's already clear, even from a legislator's seat, so many of these departments and programs are wasteful and unnecessary in the first place, like the hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer subsidies for illegal immigrants, like some of these bureaucracies that are doing nothing but raising costs without providing a public benefit, like the Office of Health Strategies, for instance, and that we keep growing bureaucracy without finding any sort of savings whatsoever. But when we're in charge of the state government, the executive branch in particular, we're going to have an opportunity to truly understand what is going on. And when we're in that seat, we better nominate and elect a Republican who we can count on to stiffen their spine and actually get the job done to the benefit of working class and middle class families who are unfortunately paying the third highest taxes in the country. As you would say, as well as I and all of us in this room, we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. And that actually means doing the tough work of auditing everything and finding the waste and getting rid of it because it's costing regular people who can't afford to pay their bills money.
I'd like to recognize the questioner because this lady has done so much for the state of Connecticut, calling attention to voter fraud, a very serious issue. Take a bow, take a bow. Her organization is fantastic. And so before I even go into this, and I agree with what Ryan said, I want to point out that voter fraud is a serious issue. And when I am the candidate, I'm going to have my own voter integrity team as we approach Election Day. And that team will include photographers and lawyers to go to the suspect polling places where, amazingly, they always find a bag of ballots at 9 p.m. Amazing, right? And in addition, let me just assure you right now, I will not concede on election night. If they say I haven't won, we're going to court to examine the evidence, including those witnesses and photographers that we have used. So you can take that to the bank. Now, absolutely. Now, on the issue that Ryan raised, it's very important that we look at all areas of spending and reduce spending. But the best way to force, and I say force, a reduction in spending, absolutely keeping it level, no increase at all, is to pass my income tax elimination legislation. It says spending cannot increase above the base level. Any new revenue must go to reduce the tax. That's how we get rid of the spendaholics.
Thank you very much to our proud panelists. Now we have a final round of Crunch Connecticut trivia. Jason Douglas, he has a few questions for you based on Connecticut's history and see how well you guys know it.
Oh boy.
Okay, thank you everybody. This is something that isn't normally done in debates, but we're going to do it right now. First of all, let's put down the hostile applause for Betsy and Ryan for coming out there. Great discussion. Great to have you both here.
Take a bow.
This is democracy as it works, right? So, Betsy and Ryan, the political pressure is off from here on out.
Oh, this is going to be far.
We're going to ask you some trivia questions.
I think it's going to be tougher.
Multiple choice. We'll have you guys answer them.
Okay.
Come in afterward, okay? Question number one. Who was the first governor of Connecticut?
John Trumbull.
Was it Samuel Huntington, Wilbur L. Cross, L.T. Grasso, or Jonathan Trumbull?
John Trumbull.
That's what say you.
John Trumbull.
Trumbull.
The answer is actually Samuel Huntington.
No
Yes.
way.
Oh! Wilbur, as you know, Wilbur L. Cross was the first full-time governor of Connecticut, and that wasn't until the 1940s.
Wow.
Question two. In what town did the awesome Nathan Hale make his homestead? Was it A, Cheshire, B, New London, C, Chaplin, or D, Coventry?
Say the 4 towns again.
A, Cheshire, B, New London, 3, Chaplin, and D, Coventry.
I think it was
Nathan Hale's
Coventry.
hometown.
I thought it was Richmond.
I thought it was Coventry. I don't know.
Ryan says
Coventry.
Coventry.
I thought it was Ridgefield, which isn't on the list.
Rob, what do you think? Coventry it is.
It was a Coventry?
Question number 3. What is the Connecticut state flower?
Ooh, I know this one.
A, the lilac. B, forsythia. C, mountain laurel. D, common milkweed.
Mountain laurel.
Mountain laurel.
Yeah, it's the mountain laurel.
Right.
Yep. We got one.
Next one. Next lady. Sorry. Number 4. According to Webster's dictionary, what is the name for a Connecticut resident?
Nutmegger.
Is it Connecticuteer, Connecticuter, Nutmegger, or Connecticutite? According to the dictionary.
So I think according to the dictionary, it might be Connecticuter, but we all say Nutmegger. So I'm going to go with B, and you're going to go with Nutmegger?
I'm
and
going
I'll go
with Nutmegger.
Okay, then we'll have a little contrast here.
According to the dictionary, the answer is B, Connecticuter.
Oh, good for you.
Next one.
Do you know why they call them nutmegger? They call us nutmeggers, by the way. It's because in colonial times, the Connecticuters would sell fake nutmeg to unsuspecting visitors, and that's why they call them nutmeggers. So it was actually further kind of yeah. It's a very it's funny.
Next question. Who were the first known to explore Connecticut? Was it the Spanish, the French, the Dutch, or the English?
I think it was the English. I think it was the English.
I would say the English, although it's close to New York City, so it could be the Dutch, but I'll say the English.
English.
It is the Dutch. Now, the next question. This is the last regular question. We have a bonus question. What does the Native American name Connecticut translate into English? Is it A, Big Forest, B, Long River, C, Sharp Tongue, or D, Rounded Hills?
Long River.
I thought it meant Republican.
Once one of you becomes governor, the answer is, crowd?
Long River.
Long River, you're right. Okay, so we got one more, the bonus question. I hope you have the music queued up.
Oh, no, we're going to do closing statements after that.
We're going to do what? Oh, yeah. What is the Connecticut state song? Is it A, Take Me Out to the Ball Game? No. B, Yellow Rose of Texas? No. C, Born in East LA by Cheech and Chong? No. The answer is yes, D.
Yankee Doodle Dandy.
And we're going to have the music come on with the captain in the back. We're going to get back to tomorrow. Thank you all.
Thank you, Joseph, for that. Joseph Zegos, the head of Common Sense News and Entertainment. Thank you.
I refuse to sing Yankee Doodle Dandy on stage as well. Don't want to lose any votes.
Well, it's time now for our closing statements for both candidates. And since Betsy McCaughey went first for the opening statement, no, we don't have time. I'm sorry. We don't have time. I'm sorry. We're already past the time. Ryan Fazio will go first for the closing statement, and each of you guys will get 2 minutes. Thank you. Ryan, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you to the CTRA for organizing this debate, which has been a lot of fun. Anyone who doesn't want to debate should just watch this debate because it's been so much fun. There's nothing to worry about. But I really appreciate you all organizing this, I think, very important and informative debate, and you all being so engaged and attending this debate. This is the most important election in recent history in Connecticut, because all across our state, people are hurting. But they're starting to wake up to the fact that it is time for a change, and that this state leadership has failed them time and time again, broken promises, and left us with the most unaffordable state in the country. I have, I think, a record, bar none, of a Republican in this state who has won the toughest of fights in a Kamala Harris plus 17% district against $700,000, the most expensive state Senate campaign in state history. But I also won by standing by our principles as Republicans, not running away from them. I believe that we can create a coalition that will bring change to this state, that will reduce taxes and electric rates, that will protect local control, that will end sanctuary state status, and that will always defend our constitutional freedoms just as they always should be. This state is my home. I'm not a career politician. I spent most of my career in the private sector. I was born and raised in this state, and this state is the only place that I and my fiance will ever call home. It's about time we gave this state leadership equal to the caliber of our people. As governor, I'll do that. So together, I hope to earn your support so that we can change Hartford, save Connecticut, and create a brighter future for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I've also been very pleased to be here and to join Ryan. I grew up here in Milford and then in Westport. My dad was a factory worker. He worked at the W.E. Bassett nail clipper factory in Derby. We didn't have a lot when I was growing up, but it didn't matter because back then, Connecticut was the land of opportunity. And even a kid like me could dream big and know I was going to go places. And the day I won a scholarship to college, and my dad put that Vassar decal on the back of his old blue Dodge Dart and drove me to college, was the biggest day of his life. The tears rolled down his face. I want that kind of opportunity in Connecticut again, that feeling that our young people are going to be going places, that they don't have to move to Florida or Texas to make a career, that they can build their lives right here. And that's why I am running for governor. It's not a stepping stone for me, as you might have guessed. I am running for governor because I have a plan. I am a woman with a plan to turn this state around, to launch the Connecticut comeback. And it starts with eliminating the state income tax. I ask you to take this bold step with me. Instead of listening to the naysayers, be bold, be confident, be optimistic, and fight, 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 because we can make this state great again. I ask for your vote. Together, we can make Connecticut the comeback state.
Thank you very much. Before we close up shop, I would like to invite Pastor Jake Dell back to the mic to lead us in a closing prayer.
Gracious Father, bless us as we go our separate ways this evening, and we give you thanks for what we've seen and heard, and we ask your wisdom and guidance, and bless Connecticut and these United States of America. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Jake. Well, then everyone got a lot out of this tonight.
Good job.
Excellent. I want to thank both Dr. Betsy McCaughey and State Senator Ryan Fazio for agreeing to participate in this debate, all of you here for attending in person, and everyone watching online at home. On behalf of Common Sense News and Entertainment, Yankee Team News, and the Connecticut Republican Assembly, this is Mark Minnick signing off. And if you are going to the CTGOP convention next week, please stop by our booth and say hi. I'll be there all weekend. Thanks again, and until our next debate, 1 Peter 3:14. Good night, God bless, and to all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day. Thank you.